Hey there, welcome to the channel. My name is David, I'm a conductor. I just graduated from the Schola Cantorum Baseliensis, which is a school for early music, and I'm going to break down what is early music, why is it called early, and what is the problem with that. One caveat first, when I'm talking about music and the history of music, I'm only talking about this tiny little piece of the world that is Europe. So I'm talking about so-called Western music. Alright, when you have a look at the history of music between today and the dawn of time, then just something there in the middle is called classical music. Everything before classical music is called early music. Everything after classical music, so between classical and us today, that is called modern music. If you want, you can go more granular and say, okay, this is romantic music, here we have the Renaissance music, but in general, classical, early, modern music. Which brings us to the question, what is so important about classical music that everything before that is just early and everything after that is just so like post-classical music? Classical means two things, comes from Latin word classicus. First meaning is that it's the top class of something. So classical is a term that people after that time used to say, okay, classical music, this is the best music that we can think of. Well, Beethoven, Mozart, it can't get any better than that. So this is the epitome of music in a way. The second thing is music of this time, of a small period of this classical music, is similar to something that those people would call classical, which is the old Roman and Greek times. So to have those classicistic structure, balance, perfection in a way. But in general, classic means that's the best level that we can think of. Everything before is early, everything after is modern. You already might have noticed that this is kind of problematic. So why do we do that in the first place? Why do we group things together? Why do we have periods of time, of history? I think it just comes from wanting to understand things. So when you see history and the enormous amount of things that have happened on this earth, then you want to categorize. You want to see, okay, this is kind of similar to that, and but very different to this. So we group this together, we group that together. So we have categories, and now we have a bigger picture. We can better understand things that are new to us, because we then can sort them. But the ways those categories come together and the measures to group that can be quite subjective, can be quite random sometimes. For example, the term new music, like, okay, this sounds like new music, is used, of course, several times throughout the history of music. People from 1600 would also call their music nuova musica, new music. People from 300 years before that would say, okay, now we do the new music. So it really comes down to the one that makes those categories, and it tells us maybe a little bit more about them than about the things they want to describe. So this can be a problem. How do we solve this problem? How do we understand what was going on at this certain point, 1583 in time? We can have a look at what was going on there in terms of art, in terms of every source that we can find. But the more important step is to get rid of everything after that, to unlearn everything that happened between the point we're interested in and what was happening afterwards. And if you do this, you see, well, there is nothing like early music in an objective sense, because music that was written, for example, in 1530 was not something before classical music, but rather something that was influenced by everything before that. Early does not make any sense to as a name for this special music, because it's not like we're waiting for classic to happen, or we're waiting to music to be fully developed. No, let's look at this certain point in time. And this is why people that do so-called early music today are a little bit special, because they care so much about what was the context of this music. They say, if you know as much as you can know about how this music was intended to sound, how it was performed, what was the context, then this music gets more real in a way. If you perform it like it may have been performed in back at its birth, then you come a little bit closer to what it actually can do to people, to the listeners, to the audience. So, of course, you can agree with this or you can disagree with if this music gets really more real by looking into sources about how it sounded. But this is what early music is today. It's a whole movement of scholars and musicians and musicologists so that try really to go back in time and to see, okay, how was this done and how can we kind of reproduce this, the surround, the setting, everything that is the context of this music and time. And of course there is a name for that. This mindset is called historically informed performance practice. How can I do performances today of old music that are most likely to be similar to what the original performance was? To close this, early music is called early because it comes before something that we called classical. And early musicians are special because they carry so much about what was exactly at this point in time. I personally think it matters how you name things, so I'd rather go not with the term of early music and use objective terms like 16th century Italian music, or maybe contemporary terms like stile moderno, for example. All right, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, here is my latest video. If you're interested, hit the subscribe button and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.